But it's 8:02, we'll call the meeting to order. Can we get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Support. I have a request,
Sure.
and that is to pull out Project Rising Tide from the consent agenda, since there was no report, so I'm not sure what we're consenting to if there was a report, and since we had a meeting yesterday, I think there's information Lizette and I can add to that. And then I'd also like to pull out the design.
Where do you want to move it to?
Generally, items that are pulled out are just
Just
where they are.
Stay,
Correct.
okay.
And then design, and because there's a couple items that have occurred since our meeting that I want to bring to the board's attention.
So T made the motion, Taylor second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment? Hearing none. Approval of September 11th meeting minutes.
I move approval.
I support.
T and Lynn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of September financial report.
Yeah, I move approval.
Support. Couple questions, as always.
It was T and
I
that.
was counting on you.
Yeah. Me too. So, Caitlin, probably for you. So, under property acquisition, we have listed as about $5,500 in expenses this year. Since we haven't done any property acquisition, I'm just curious as what those expenses are allocated to that account. And I'm looking at the profit and loss.
No, we don't.
So, property
Is it-
acquisition, so it's under the economic restructuring.
Is it anything that we did for the American Cleaners?
Not aware of anything we've done since July, so.
The 5,400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just,
Was there some,
Taxes?
well, taxes? No, taxes were earlier. But did Tom do anything? He did some work there. I don't know if part of Tom's fees are allocated.
they haven't been.
No, they haven't been.
If you could just
To
look
my
into
knowledge.
that and let me
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
It just seems like it might be misclassified.
Absolutely.
So. Then the other comment I have is on hops and crops, the expenses. So it looks like we have about $29,000 in expenses, which is about $8,000 over budget. And it just, to me, it concerns me that we don't have a lot of fiscal control, where it just seems that we don't really pay attention to the budget and we just spend. And this bit us probably about 4 or 5 years ago, where for house and crops, we had a rainy day. And we didn't get good weather, and we actually ended up having like a $10,000 loss that year, just because it had no attendance. If we're going to go that much over budget, I think the board should be somehow in the loop that we're authorizing a significant over budget expense. It ended up turning out okay, because the weather was good, but our income was only $9,000 over budget, so it was kind of close there. So just fiscal observation.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I think those were my only financial statement comments. Yep.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So approval of the consent agenda, which would just be business development. We
I
can
move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Project Rising Tide.
So I don't know, do you want to talk? Should I talk?
However,
Why don't you come up? Since I have a feeling I'll be talking a lot in the rest of the meetings. I have a feeling I'll be talking a lot in the rest of the meetings.
Yeah.
You don't have.
So just as a little update, like Barry mentioned, we had the first Manistee public meeting, which was kind of a trial of the concept that Joe Borstrom recommended about having a space to talk with all the community organizations about, the community, and also looking together at the recommendations from Joe Borstrom in general and kind of have a game plan on how do we implement them really. Joe Borstrom is coming to the community again on Monday, and the idea is that all the organizations, if your board has a question of how the collaboration looks with other organizations, just questions, the action items in general, that, we'll get them together, either pass them on to me or to Caitlin, to get all those questions answered with Joe on Monday. All of the organizations agreed that out of the meeting with Joe on Monday, we're going to have a game plan as far as, the recommendations for customer service trainings, for example. Is that the priority recommendation that you guys want to work with? Is there any other ones that you guys want to take, as the main one, most important ones? So that's, I think, that covers that. The group agreed that it was more beneficial to meet monthly since everything was starting, so the next meeting is going to be on November 12th. Mark Miller from the Chamber is going to be the one transitioning the meetings, as you know, and kind of basically wrapping up and backing out and kind of making sure things get completed and delivered. As far as the branding, I just last week, the consultant really hasn't finished, and this is one of those things that I generally have no control over. Just yesterday, back in Raider asked them for all of the final product because they need to wrap up this contract too. I passed on to Caitlin, kind of the preliminary stuff that he passed on to me. Hopefully within the next few weeks, he'll deliver what he said he'll observe additional for the DDA. I presented to the city last night so the city can select which logo that they want to go with, the image and everything, and the council, kind of told me their preferences, and we're going to move on to update the city's website and digital stuff and kind of plan on what's going to be the next step as far as that. With the board training, Dan Leonard was here yesterday in the meeting too, because like I said, they're trying to wrap up with the communities, and he said that we're going to be working with a firm out of, I think it's Lansing, like a lawyer's firm, that's going to be doing the board training with all of you. The preliminary times is by the end of October or early November. You'll hear more from me as they tell me. I asked him yesterday about the funds for the facade grant too. He hasn't heard anything either for this community or any of the other communities. As you know, there was a little bit of an interesting, sorry.
What was the group again that will do the training?
I don't know the name. I couldn't
I'm
tell
sorry.
you from my head, but I wrote it down as a very strange name, but I'll be happy to email you.
Is a law firm out of Bel Air that he's worked with before on board training?
And they plan on scheduling the training this month?
Yes, that's what he told me. Yesterday we worked on the proposal before the meeting and just talked about it, went through some of the things we have shared in the survey, but I guess he'll give you more specifics because he sent a proposal yesterday to them. I can look up the name to you and then just send you an email so you know which firm it is. And then board training, and then with the housing, I saw that in your agenda you have, kind of adopting these plans since we talked about this. Sarah Lucas's recommendation as it relates to the DDA is more of like, how do we do it and get some more people applying for rental rehabs, or just really the message out there of benefits of living downtown. I can get more into a one-on-one with Caitlin after the meeting on Monday with Joe as to the specific stuff for the DDA so you can review it all together, because I feel it's easier to consider the adoption once you have an outline for your board. And then I think that's it, unless I'm missing anything.
Well, I'll add
Yeah, sure.
my color commentary. Yesterday's meeting, and to an extent the meeting before that, a lot of discussion was had on the makeup of the Manistee forward. And I have different opinions than the majority of the people that are currently on that group. And I just kind of want to explain some of that. So if you've looked at Joe's Borgstrom's economic development report, there is a version of his view of what the Take Forward committee structure should look like. And it is composed of 5 groups with 2 members each, for a total of 10. And what is coming out of Manistee Forward, and I voiced my opinions, and I'm at the point now of, okay, I'm the minority, so we move on, is a much broader representative group, including, what is the makeup of it? I mean, it's essentially the steering committee from Roger Price and Ty moving forward. Plus a couple, so-
Yesterday was suggested to add the community foundation and
Possibly
hospital.
Ramsdale.
Yeah. And
Possibly Ramsdale. But the makeup is,
the county Mr. Spirit, well, now it's the county Mr. Spirit, the DDA, the chamber, the city, the county.
and Mark's gonna come in for the cheat sheet.
Good job. Little River, sorry, it's a name of the girl. The county, the city, the DDA, the chamber, the RAMSO, the intermediate school district, the Western Community College, and the hospital, and the manufacturers council. And then they asked yesterday to include the community foundation and the RAMSO to the group.
So that's one person per group?
Yeah, ideally, that's what
Well,
we talked
except
yesterday. Trial one.
except currently the DDA has 2 people on it.
Mhm.
So that is something that probably shortly should get corrected and we should go down to 1. Currently, Caitlin and myself are representing and sitting there for historic reasons, I'll say. So that's just an observation, is that, and part of the discussion yesterday around this is the view of the participants is that the purpose of this group is bigger picture stuff. You can tell from the makeup, it's a much wider community-based organization or group looking at kind of inter-group discussions and things. I believe Joe's recommendation was a different style group focused more on implementation of the details of that plan, because the parties of that plan are small parties. 2 different groups, fine. This group is now going to be that broader picture. And I think we're going to have to figure out how we do the implementation details. We talked a lot yesterday about needing to create subgroups to focus on specific action items coming out of the economic development plan. So that's kind of how that is evolving, where it stands. When we're adopting our that plan later, just be aware that not everything that's in there is going to be implemented in the ways that it says it is in that plan.
And my thing is, ideally, yesterday, one of the things that group also discussed is that it could be run, we'll do the first meeting, kind of see how things move on, and interaction with other organizations. Barry proposed the idea of including, for example, Filer,
That's going to be
DDA.
my next point.
Yeah, and then, they agreed to have just, do a trial run, and then you can invite them depending on the subject that they're discussing, as community leaders or things that you're serving, or the work groups. If we want, does the DDA or the community want to do something with Filer, we'll bring Filer into the table, but it was decided to do it as they evolve in the group. I guess.
Jump in,
That's
I'd
it.
go.
Well, I'm just wondering where this discussion's going, because it sounds like we're rehashing who should be on the committee, which we've already agreed on.
But this board should know how it is being represented,
Right.
especially when it reads in the document a structure that's different.
Right, but I don't want to get into a rehash of who should be on or who shouldn't be on when that decision's already made with that group.
I'm not intending to do that, I'm just trying to inform.
All right.
And then the other, this was just happened actually yesterday, even after our meeting, kind of going a little bit towards what you were saying, Barry. The other communities are kind of replicating our new group. Joe did a similar recommendation in Ionia, and then because that community like Manistee lacked the space in which all the organizations, could meet and talk, they're kind of replicating our way to do it. They're actually going to call it Ionia Forward. But just to know, just kind of put out there, that's kind of a good structure that communities are thinking that could work as far as having a space to talk and communicate, and then if there's an action item or a decision to make you move to a smaller group, like, hey Rachel, hey Karen, we need to work on this thing, can we meet and specifically make a decision on it? So I thought that was really positive, I think.
And again, from my perspective, it's just a different
Mhm.
focus,
I
and depending on the focus, and we decided on a focus, and that makeup is appropriate for that. You touched on Filer, so my counterpoint to, if we're going to have this be larger, then are we missing people? And as it relates to a strong focus on economic development, I brought up Filer DDA, Filer Township, and potentially Manistee Township as being, broader entities who have significant business corridors that should be at the table. The decision out of the group was not to, at this time, include them. And essentially the rationale starting at this point is the focus of this group is really going to be the city of Manistee, because that's kind of what this came from Rising Tide, which was the city of Manistee and her proud program. That may evolve over time as this group kind of gets its legs, but that's kind of the current focus. So because we've had meetings with the Filer DDA and trying to figure out how we can work with them as it relates to economic development. They're currently not at the table, and it's essentially right now by design, by the focus of that group. That could change.
Is there anything that would preclude the DDA from working with Filer, DDA, and
No.
other? Okay.
No.
I would point of clarification, it's not focused just on the city of Manistee. We have a more broader-based group. We have the chamber, we have the college, we have the intermediate school district, we have the county. So it's, it's not, I don't think, focused exclusively on the city. It's much more inclusive.
From a makeup, but I think from a topics that we'll be focusing on, it should be focused on the city of Manistee. Or these other groups are going to feel isolated because they're not at the table when we're talking about things. So we need to be aware of that kind of
I
finding.
think it's important to recognize that, but at the same point, the thing that we stumble over continuously in Manistee is that great ideas, great initiatives, and then a stall, because it gets bigger and bigger and bigger without any type of movement forward. So I think that
And I
you're
think
right.
Jeff really said that well yesterday.
Yeah, we have to really start on this, get this going,
Keep focused.
and then be inclusive. We're not excluding, we will be inclusive, but, it's got to have some footing first.
And I also think it's just a genuine, part of figuring out the dynamics. The current makeup, it may not work. That may be something we figure out as we go along, but.
I was very happy coming out of that meeting with, even though I'm not necessarily 100% that this isn't the way I would do it, but I understand. And it helps me as we interact with these other groups of explaining to them, when they ask, well, why aren't we at the table? I have a story that I can now tell them. They may agree or not agree, but at least I can give them an answer that I'm comfortable giving, and I think that's important.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Design, Barry?
One of the items, so design met last week, and one of the action items out of the committee meeting was following up on some board directions of the committee probably a year ago now, as it related to Blight, and specifically the Rosemary Gordon properties who've been under construction for a decade. Their HDC certificates expired at the end of September. And out of our committee meeting, which was just a few days before that, we directed Caitlin to send a letter like we did earlier this year, listing properties that we considered blighted and asking the city's help under their authorities to try to take action. The Historic District Commission met on the 2nd of October. And in that meeting, they renewed their, they're not permits certificates of
Appropriateness.
appropriateness. And I was watching the video of that meeting last night because at the previous meeting in the spring, those commissioners were adamant, this is your last and final, you've got to get this done. And they basically now authorize it for another year until the end of June next year. But in going through that meeting, it was really interesting watching the HDC struggle with what their role and responsibility is. I think they're of the opinion now, and they are reaching out to get further guidance from the state, that they don't really have any authority to deny or to enforce things. All they have is the ability or the authority to say is something appropriate or not. Timelines, deadlines, trying to, they've got a carrot, they don't have any sticks. This then ties into, City Council recently appointed an ad hoc Blight committee, I believe. And all of these things come together, and we've been talking about this somewhat at the board level, a lot at the design committee level, about blight in our district. And there's just no progress. And I think out of this ad hoc Blight committee, I'm hopeful that all the parties can come together and really come up with a good strategy of how to deal with. And I don't want to fault, and again, watching the HDC commissioners' comments, what those building owners are doing is commendable. I mean, they spent 10 minutes talking about types of wood and architectural terms that I vaguely know. What's the difference between a cornice and a corbel? And I don't know those things, but they're very much concerned about restoring those buildings. What they don't see is how those buildings appear to our customers and the visitors to our community, and those negatives. So there's a lot of positives, but there's also negatives, and I think they're focused on one thing as a community, and as our mission, we're focused on some other things, and how we bring all these opinions together to come up with strategies that satisfy more than multiple needs. So at the design, we also talked a little bit about seeing if the DDA could get representation more formally on the ad hoc committee, and I don't know where that is, and I don't know if we are in a position to influence that or not.
Not at this time. The council's direction was that they wanted a citizen from each of the council districts to comprise that committee.
Okay.
And so that's where we're at.
Do you know when they'll be starting to meet? Because we
I think
probably
it's
have
next
an
week.
interest in attending those meetings if we
It's next week. We'd have to check with Cindy. She said it.
Okay, okay. So those were the updates related to design that I wanted to bring up.
Can I just make a comment in regards to this last discussion? I think it's important to consider the building owner in this. It's always easy to look at it from a customer and from a citizen standpoint, but it's been rare that a property owner has been involved in these discussions, and when it comes to dealing with the HDC and the city and the permitting, it's always easy, but to look at it from a property owner standpoint, I think is really important to consider, whoever it may be.
That's why I hope that even in this ad hoc committee, if we can have conversations, I've been the complainer for 2 years about all this property, but, I don't think there's been a conversation with property owners about, listen, we appreciate what you're doing. I mean, great, beautiful job, a lot of detail. However, could we have a window put in instead of chipboard? You can work on it, but do we have to have, it all, boxed up and looking like that? I mean, somewhere come to an agreement so that you could say, work on it, we appreciate that, you can do that. However, can we do something here so that it's at least presentable? If you just have a window or something, and I've seen other places do that where they have the window, but there's nothing inside, but they put a shade over it so that you don't see that.
And we as an organization do have funds allocated for these type of purposes, so figuring out how we can incentivize, behavior is also, I think, important.
And for clarification, that particular owner has been in front of the HDC for a number of years, and those discussions did take place. It's just that he has made the decision, or for whatever reasons, not to finish it yet. But those discussions have taken place, and he and the HTC in the past, I cannot speak for the last 2 years, but previously when I was there, we had those discussions and alternatives, do something about, the windows and so on. Yeah.
And that might be something like maybe Caitlin can reach out to them and say, we have funds that can help you to
I mean,
do this.
our previous directors have been involved, so.
I wouldn't stop.
We,
I
I know.
The property owner used to attend every one of our DDA meetings also, and openly have heard us discuss this property.
My comments are not specific to these properties. In general, I just want the investors as part of the conversation. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yep.
Anything else on design? Okay, director's report.
I wanted to throw out the 2 dates. I'm setting up board training for the beginning of next year. And in the past that we've typically tried to do it the same day as the board meeting, an afternoon training. I want to throw out there that I'm looking at January 8th to do that afternoon training. That's the day of the typical board meeting.
And just, I wouldn't call it necessarily board training, it's really more strategic planning.
That's what I was
Strategic
wondering.
plan.
Yes.
Not to be
Yeah.
confused with
Strategic
what
plan, okay.
Yes,
Rising Tide is doing later this month.
strategic planning day. I just wanted to put that on your calendar. And then
What was that date again, January?
January 8th. It's the day of our typical board meeting.
So typically that's a 8 to 5 type commitment, so.
It used to be called a retreat.
Depends what we have.
Didn't feel like a retreat.
Torture, maybe.
And I wanted to indicate that the Spark application is now open. At the moment, the application deadline is October 30th. That could most likely be extended to the following week. And our pitch the finalists will be announced on National Entrepreneurship Day, which I believe is November 21st. And the pitch day is January 25th.
Any questions for Caitlin on the report that she gave in our packet? Okay. Old business, consideration of negotiations for Little River Holdings. So from our last meeting, Caitlin was asked to work with Tyler on negotiations. She submitted a letter to Little River Holdings stating that we were interested in working with them on that piece of property. And then they came back and asked us for more information. What they asked for is a list of very specific items that we want to see happen. So Kyle, Barry, and I, and Caitlin met on Friday. Caitlin called all of the board members, or most of the board members, to get their thoughts and ideas, and then she's making a recommendation on that property, American Cleaners property.
What board members were contacted?
Yeah, I didn't
wasn't-
call.
I didn't get a call.
Right, it was email, trying to see when people were available. I didn't get to all the board members.
Okay.
I'm feeling a little in the dark.
So am I. I think it's probably,
Today's considerations or comments, I found out on Friday that we needed specifics.
well, you gotta be real careful about Open Meetings Act, because you're dancing on the head of a pin.
How so?
Because if you try to solicit, if you have any discussions towards, or deliberated towards a decision of any kind, it's not an open meeting, it's violation.
I'm not asking for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just cautioning you need to be careful,
But
because it sounds like it.
if it's one person at a time,
No.
Still,
You can't
No.
reach out and ask for
Okay.
any kind of decision.
That's called holding.
So,
It's not-
so
yeah.
what happened was Caitlin gave Little River Holdings the letter that said that we were interested in looking at, I think they asked for us to give them the property for $1, or any of the negotiations that were taking place between American Cleaners and Little River Holdings. So then Caitlin found out at another meeting that they needed more information. So Tyler was in my store along with Caitlin, that just happened to be, and Tyler said he needed the, anything that we wanted for the American Cleaners Project. Actually, he needed it 2 weeks ago. We weren't told that until, what day was it? Wednesday or Thursday, when you were both in my shop. So me, Barry, and Kyle met, and then we're like, well, if they want the, hang on, if they want it by Wednesday at our meeting, then we have to find out.
I don't like your use of the terms me, Barry, and Kyle met. The executive
Or the
committee
executive
at a
team.
meeting,
Yeah.
and this topic was talked about at that meeting. It sounds really bad the way you were phrasing it.
It sounds bad no matter how you couch it, in my mind. You know, a couple of things, as I recall, the board authorized Caitlin to commence discussions, negotiations with the Little River Holdings. I don't recall that motion being bring in certain board members and help. So as a board member, I feel slighted and left out. And I'm also disappointed that the director didn't follow what the board had authorized.
She did follow what the board authorized.
But-
She gave the letter to Little River Holdings, then they came back and said that the state needed more than that. So then she began working on what they asked for again.
Right. And so, when's it coming back to the board?
I think right now.
well, what is it that, see, I'm still confused about, I say catch-22 here. The prospective developer is asking the DDA for ideas
No.
on how, what we want to see?
No, they're
What
asking
is
for
it?
much more. They're asking for basically a contract that can be signed that will give them the right to control the property
For what purpose?
for their development purposes.
Which is, what is the development?
It's essentially the same development that has been talked about the last 2 times they presented.
I have not heard of, I hear rumors, and indirectly I hear what the development may be, but I still, to this day, I do not have clear understanding of what is the proposed project to which we can react to. I mean, we can, and I understood that that's what Caitlin was doing, soliciting ideas from us, from the board, on what it is we want to see on that property. Is that correct? And is this what the prospective developer wants?
It's my understanding that it was part of a larger project that they're assisting an out-of-state developer in assembling property in anticipation of development. And I think what they're looking for is commitments from various property owners to be part of the project.
And
And
we,
it's yet to be, you know, the concept is being fleshed out, so.
and we gave them the commitment letter. That was done.
Right.
Tyler came back and said he wanted all of our contingencies. So that's what Caitlin was
But
working
there's,
on.
there's more there.
I can understand
He
that.
wants our contingencies so that he can draft a purchase agreement that contains that language for us to sign.
We don't want.
So it's essentially, you know, we could write the purchase agreement ourselves, or we can have them write it to us, but
That's
both
what-
ways, we need
This
the
board
information.
should be putting in writing, you know, you will not put, whatever, something.
Yes.
Ghastly
And-
or-
That's what
you know.
Caitlin is working on,
Right.
that's what
So-
she's going to talk about.
This, again, this topic came up at the executive committee meeting. In that meeting, I said many of the same things that have been voiced here. We need to be very careful because we as a committee have not been delegated the responsibility to task this item. However, Caitlin, in what she has been assigned as responsibility, certainly can talk to board members to get their thoughts on what are items that maybe should be discussed and part of this process. Because given her newness to her position, she was expressing to us that she's not sure what items are important or not to this board. So we basically instructed her, gather information from board members, take that information, distill it down, and come back to the board at this meeting with your recommendations as to the conditions of a purchase agreement.
But Tom St. Dennis is here. I would ask that maybe we invite him up to give us a status and where we're at. You mind doing that, Tom? That might help everybody understand the scope.
Thank you. So we gave the DDA what I thought was a pretty straightforward purchase agreement on August 23rd, I believe, very simple language. We've had numerous discussions with what we're trying to do here. We received a letter back that I have to say wasn't a commitment. It was just a nebulous letter back that really didn't address the purchase agreement. And when you go to develop something like this, it's extremely difficult until you know exactly what parcels are going to be involved going forward. So right now, I think the affiliated, we have some of the property owners that have agreed to go forward without having an exact knowledge yet, because you can't tell yet until you see who's going to go forward. Just to be clear, other property owners are waiting for leadership from the DDA, but if the DDA isn't disposed to exert leadership in this, we're able to go forward without the DDA's property. I just want to be crystal clear that it's your choice. You can't wait forever. We've been 2 months and we haven't even heard a response yet that tells us how we can start architectural drawings and look at it. So we believe we gave you a very crystal clear purchase agreement, which basically had a couple of embedded options, very basic. There's been not a response to that purchase agreement for us to get funding both from several of our partners. We need a little bit more commitment than just says we're going to talk to you some more. So at this point, I think other property owners also are waiting for whether there's leadership on the DDA or not. At this point, I'm sensing there is a leadership not to go forward, which is unfortunate, but that's your decision.
Tom, you said that you had, in your proposal, you were crystal clear about what you expected from the DDA. And if I remember correctly, you said, give us the property, essentially, for $1. But there was no, for what purpose? And over what period of time?
That's spelled
Pardon?
The period of time is spelled out in the purchase agreement I sent you.
I'm talking about a project. Is this for, what is it for? You know, the way I read your proposal is essentially blank check. We commit the property for $1. But maybe others know more about what the project is. I personally don't. And as a DDA board member, how can I, or maybe others, commit to something that is nebulous, to something that we don't know what it is? So how can we get some more clarity on what is it that we want to commit to? And I understood that that's what Kevin was doing. She has maybe had some discussions with others, with you, with Tyler, about the project, potential project, and she's soliciting input from the board members, which I'll be glad to give to her, but I'm a little concerned about what Thad said, that soliciting input from individual members may be,
You gotta be careful.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we go? You know, I see here that we want to get somewhere, but what is it, what do we want to do? What is it?
As a group, you know, again, I'm gonna get concerned because we're still pushing this down the road. I think as a group, what I might hear is, let's talk about what we don't want there, you know? And that's kind of what I remember the conversation after you were tasked with this was about clear about if we don't use that property, it's, you know, reverts back to us. And we were gonna discuss the cost, all right?
That's
But
what
we
Caitlin
need-
was going to
and
talk
she
about
did that.
today. Yes.
And today, we're gonna talk about and list the items that we
Yes.
don't want there, so that they can move
Yes.
ahead and fit to that project. Because I hear that it's nebulous. They will do a project, they wanna do a project, they have a 5,000-foot idea. We've gotta get them, you know, tell them where the base is.
Yes, and that's what, when Tyler came back to me, that's what he instructed, or what he asked us to do. So things are not really crystal clear because you're saying something different than what Tyler was saying to Caitlin and I just last week.
So I want to remind T that you came to our office 2 years ago, and you had an incredible architectural drawing of what you wanted to see. We basically ran with your idea from a couple of years ago. So this confusion that nothing has ever been talked about or reviewed, I don't understand that.
Well, because that was a conceptual plan for that entire area, and if you tell me that, yeah, that's what we're looking at doing, and specifically for the American Cleaners property. I mean, I heard all kinds of things. I heard there's going to be a parking lot. I heard that it may be a building for office building for a number of organizations. I heard that it may be part of a hotel complex. So we acquired the property couple of years ago with some specific goals. And I have not heard a proposed project that would meet those goals. Maybe there is one.
So here we are.
Yeah.
Let's formalize this.
Sure.
Let's
And
let
we can-
Caitlin do
yeah,
what she is
yeah, let's
supposed to
talk
do.
about what it is we want. Or don't want.
I appreciate that I am supported by board members in moving forward with this. I do take full responsibility for the things that I'm bringing today. I had an understanding that I was asked to do very specific things. We don't have an understanding of the conceptual project, but from my understanding, we had 3 goals, and that's where I'm starting from. They brought to us a purchase of intent for $1 and asked for our stipulations with that happening. So my expectation with the stipulation of $1, because of the amount of investment that we expect back on the site, is the activation and beautification of the site, which we originally anticipated for. Stipulations including the mixed-use building, a timeline frame, potentially a traffic study. Our second point was that it would increase our tax revenue, that the site would be taxable, that it would go towards the TIF. And then our third thing was office space, is what we originally purchased the site for. So whether that's a 20-year lease, a number lease, we can discuss those. But my understanding was those were the three expectations that the board had originally purchased the site for. And we would like to be part of a private development that would engage in those three goals.
So after a couple of months, I think that's something we can work with, right? If the board can tell us that they're supportive of incorporating those into the purchase agreement, we can then go to our partners and start the drawings. We can't do drawings, we're just stuck. So if we can have some level of commitment and leadership again from the DDA on this, I believe the other property owners will also jump on board and be creative at that point. And then once we have a team, we can start drawing to make sure everybody buys in. So that's where we're at.
Here's my suggestion. What I would like to see this board do is that enter into an agreement that the DDA would donate that property towards the project with the stipulations that go back a couple of years ago. The only thing I would be concerned about is, do we need to lease office space and incur additional expenses where we currently have no expenses for office space? That would be my only concern. But I think if I personally would be comfortable if we donated the property, we have legal authority to do that, and then conditioned on at least two of those three, and that it would be in line with the general concept of the MSU study for that area. And then that would give them an opportunity to move forward and flesh out the project, is what I'm hearing, and then come back with additional details. But, Tom, is that correct, that you need some kind of a commitment to
Well, if we
even
make
move
a
forward?
motion, I think.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
And then vote on it. And now I'm sorry, but you have to repeat.
My motion that we would donate that property towards the project with using the stipulations from 2 years ago in Boston,
Which is,
she'll have to read it again. The only one I took exception to was the leased office space. I don't think we can do that, in my opinion.
And maybe in motion, we can put and discuss possible lease of office space.
I can live with that.
Thank you.
Can you remind me
Oh,
of the
sorry.
three stipulations?
Activation and beautification of the site, which include from the MSU study our mixed-use space, traffic study, and potentially a timeline. The second point being tax or TIF revenue.
Okay. And the third, Karen, you wanted in to at least discuss
Discuss
a possible
possibility
lease.
of lease.
And I can live with that.
well,
We can discuss that. So that's my motion, I guess. But to be technical about, we need a support.
sure, good.
If somebody wants to support that, then we can discuss it further.
I'll give the support. What's the
Any
discussion?
Okay, in terms of discussion, the first two items are consistent with what we envisioned all along. In terms of the financial component, I would support donating or selling the property for $1 in exchange for a long-term lease at no cost to the DDA. Say a 20-year lease that would be essentially given going office space rent rates. It's kind of equivalent to the cost that we have into the property right now. So I would support a motion that would also include a long-term lease for space for the DDA at no cost to the DDA.
So in altering your motion to have a discussion about a long-term lease, or the other thing that jumps in my head is that depending on what it ends up being in the long run, maybe we won't want to be there. So we can open that door and have the possibility of us having a long-term lease, just like you said, you know, as our investment piece.
At no cost for
Right.
exchange for the dollar
Right.
sale.
And that's,
You know.
as like we had in the motion, is that's a discussion that can come at some point in the future.
Yes. But if
The board.
we adjust the motion to add in the long-term lease as part of our investment, I think that would be a discussion on.
Discussion on it.
That can be a negotiating.
Okay.
You know, I can amend, you know, I'll amend that. Just, the big thing is I want to give some assurances that the DDA is going to be a partner and it's not going to be a roadblock and wants to participate and move forward. And I think we need to do that.
And I feel like the original discussions that I've had with the board and with other board members, that we don't want to be a roadblock. We want to support the idea of this and have the property be in play, because realize that there's other properties that need to be in play as well. How we got here, it's just what happens, I guess. I want to know, I want to be a part of it. Me personally, I want to see this progress to the next level. So I feel like that was our original intent.
We just didn't get there. Right.
Well, the DDA by itself cannot do that project.
All right.
So we need a developer, and I don't care who the developer is, as long as they meet our goals and.
If we keep going back to these goals, but goals can change.
Yeah.
You know, situations change, and so something else can come along and we can adjust our goals and desires.
And I think, you know, in terms of donating the property, you know, back to, if the developer goes after NEC monies, you know, for a mixed-use development, you know, that can be the local match that's going to be required. So there's a lot of, you know, strategically by donating it, you know, that could help the project move forward in a couple of different ways. So that's my rationale for the donation. I just want to take some action, and as Kyle said, you know, talked about it, and I think it's time to act. So-
No, I agree, and I think for the same reason, because the MEDC for a grant, and that project would qualify for a grant, would want to see the local match, and that amount meets that requirements, about 10% of the cost.
So Tyler said that once we have the stipulations and agreed with the board, that we can let you know those, or Tyler, that something that formally would be written up, and then we can have, you would give it back to us and our attorney would look at it. Do you see that's how we would move forward?
To make it even easier, I think if we could get a resolution from this board, I think I can work with that. What that does in my mind is it shows a good faith desire to stay in the game with these, so we still have some level of control. I don't think any developer in the world wants to be micromanaged, because this is a very complex process, we all know that. But in my mind, if we had a meaningful resolution from the board that I could take to MEDC and other funders, incorporate some of the language from Caitlin, which I appreciate. I think that keeps us all at the same table. And I think that's the best we should hope for at this point. Let us, you know, we got initial massing drawings scheduled for next week, and then we have our partners flying in late in the month. After that, we should be able to get a feel that other property owners have joined in or not. I think then we can come back to the DDA and say, look, this isn't going to go, you know, and here's why. Or we can say, yeah, we think we've got a great step forward, and we talk about lease, and we can talk about all the stuff that might help everybody, you know, make the most of this. So at this point, I'd be willing to settle, and I think our partners would be willing to settle for a nice solid resolution that gives us the ability to go forward, give us a chance to bring back some more details.
How soon would you need that resolution?
I was hoping today.
Well, and I don't disagree, but I mean, we don't have one crafted. I don't know how the board feels if we can just ask Caitlin to put together a resolution based on our discussion.
If we can add it to your motion,
We
that
got-
the
yeah,
resolution will be developed.
Let's do your amended motion, I'll support it, and let's take a vote on that
Perfect.
first.
Okay.
Do you want to do roll call?
Well, actually, can I talk
Oh,
about
I'm
other
sorry.
comments? I'm not personally happy with the language of the first point that Caitlin brings up, because I don't think it encompasses the whole goals of the DDA in that purchase. Could you reread what your first point was?
Activation and beautification of the site in the form of a mixed-use space.
Okay.
And was there the MSU thing on that?
The MSU study includes the traffic study.
You mean consistent with the MSU?
You could use that language for any property within the district, activation and beautification. The location of this property on the corner of River Street and 31, the reason we purchased it is because we need a gateway to our downtown. We've talked for years on this board about how we get people who are driving through our town, who think that downtown Manistee is everything you see on 31, to slow down and take notice that there's a gem just down River Street. That's more than just activation and beautification of a site. I'd be more comfortable if somehow that gateway concept was incorporated in this language.
Can we add in the motion, instead of the word beautification, replace it with something like, to meet its concept, the gateway concept?
I would be happy with something to enhance
Yeah.
the appearance, whatever of the gateway. I'm okay with that.
We need to communicate
That's
that,
fine.
that's important.
I just want to get on record that we're on board and we made a motion and we're moving forward. That's it.
Our internal name for this is Gateway.
I know. It's nothing to do with what I think you're doing with this project. It's if we're stating our goals and we're not including what we think is important in our goals, it seems odd. And then the other comment I had is, I'm personally uncomfortable with a $0 figure, but that's just my maybe personal take on this.
But I think you called for a roll vote.
Is there any more discussion or comments? Can you do
She
a
wants
roll
a roll
call?
call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rachel Brooks,
Yes.
T,
Yes.
Barry Lynn,
No.
Kyle Mosher,
Yes.
Ted Taylor,
Yes.
Julie Walter,
Yes.
Cameron Dupano,
Yes.
Karen Goodman.
Yes.
And then,
Put that together now, we should probably make a vote on, or a motion on a resolution.
motion that we direct the executive director to prepare a resolution that summarizes the action of the board and get that to Little Rock Holdings.
That would be in consultation with legal counsel.
What? With what?
In consultation with legal counsel.
Consultation with attorney on how to put it together.
For a resolution?
No,
Yeah.
there's standard.
Okay, you want to-
Yeah.
I mean, you can talk to the city clerk, she's really good with those
Yeah.
whereases and therefore, so.
Yes.
you know.
You made a motion.
So this is going to be exactly what you need to go to everybody else.
Yeah, I think the strong stand that the DDA is making right now is sending a message out. I think it's going to allow us to now go to other partners and say, are you, can't. Then we can come back and say, okay, here we go. Here's our plans, and start having those discussions. So my answer, that's a long answer. My short answer is I read this.
So, for formality, I will second your motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Adoption of the Project Rising Tide Strategies, Branding, and Economic Development Strategy and Housing Action Plan, which was all in your board packet. I'll let Caitlin take the lead on this.
I would make a motion that we adopt formally the three work documents coming out of Project Rising Tide.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Tiff?
Since the last meeting we had, the TIF plan has been revised. Kevin has incorporated a number of revisions, clarifications, the new project numbers based on TIF revenues that we put together, and that draft TIF plan has been sent to most of the board members the last couple of days, but some of us didn't get it. I happen to know what was there, but I didn't get it until last night. So the plan then is for the board members to provide any comments on that final draft or draft of the TIF plan to Caitlin. She will incorporate your comments, and then if there is need for substantial changes, then the TIF committee will meet again with Caitlin, go over them in the next week or so, and then we'll final the plan and submit it to the city. We'd like to get everybody's comments, if you have some, by a week from Friday, right, Kevin? Which is that 17th? 18th. We think it's, we're there, but
It's one of the best of the 2 dozen that we've seen, that I've seen. I mean, it looks great.
there's been quite a bit of work, and Kevin went through the document kind of word by word, make sure there were not anything missed. But again, your comments will be appreciated.
The only place, and I don't know if it's just because when it comes up on a Word document, it might be different, but your table number 7
Yes.
is compacted and needs to be standard. That's all.
Just one general question. I see the version I looked at is for actual 30 years.
No.
Well, okay, so
When is it?
I gotta say this. This document is a disaster. I don't know what has happened in this process, but I mean, there are internal comments in here. Tables are going back to 30 years that in the previous draft were 20 years. The section that has section 2D, all the numbers are still wrong.
Which version do you have there?
This is what I printed out from what Caitlin sent me
Yeah.
yesterday.
There is not.
There's no
No,
table
I
of
don't-
contents, the cover page is missing.
No, it does not have a table of contents yet, but the
Well-
version that I have, we have gone over with Kevin, it's all 20 years.
Yeah, the
No.
one I got was 30.
Yeah. I
So-
mean, you go to item 8, duration of the plan through, actually that does say 30 then. There was some place in here that it said 49 still.
Yeah, well, on page, the copy I have on page 19, it starts at 2019, it goes to 2048.
And we had changed that.
Yeah, and then the same thing on page 18, it shows starting at, well, there it shows 20, but the chart shows 30.
Right.
So I think you just need to take a look and make sure that the board has the most current version of the TIF.
And then just resend it out.
Resend it.
Karen, do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, it's, I'm not seeing that. I don't, but this, but I get them different, you know, I get them separate from
Well, you're special.
when we're reviewing on that committee.
Caitlin will recheck and make sure she
Yeah.
sent out
Alright,
the most
yeah.
current one and then
Yeah.
resend it and then comments by next Friday.
Okay.
Any
Okay,
more
so if
discussion?
they're sent out today, later today,
Yeah.
again, can we get comments by
Next Friday.
Friday? Okay.
Not mine.
Okay, any more discussion on the TIF? Okay, appointment of committee members and chairs. The design committee, Barry Lind is chair. The members are Jeff McCullough, Jeff Rowe, Sherry Wild, Stacy Vibert, Janet Duchamp, Dennis Tierhorst, Kyle Mosher. I'll give you the list. Business Development, Valerie Bergstrom's the chair. Members are Stacy Vibert, Tamara Defanio, Carrie Koslaw, Tom Hinman, Jody Walter, Sharon Gordon, Joni, I don't know how to say Joni's last name. So I'll just give you the list. And Jamie Catlett. And then 10 is T. Expeditus, Barry Lynn.
What? After all those years?
Karen Goodman. And then those are the only committees that we have. And I'll give you the list of all the names.
Do we need any action on that? Are they chair appointments?
They are
They're chair
appointments,
appointed.
yes.
Does it need, I don't know.
I don't think it hurt. I'd make a motion to, board recognize the chair's appointments for the meetings
Support.
for here.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, RFP for DDA contracts, including attorney and graphic design. We talked about this last month. We said that we were going to talk about it again. Valerie had brought up last month that we should start looking at all of our contracts and our RFPs. And I would just make a suggestion that we start looking at these contracts maybe in the beginning of the new year and have solid contracts for the fiscal year next year.
We don't currently have a contract for an attorney.
No, there's,
Why- I guess my question is the same as last month, is why do we need
For items that may involve the city or another entity that may be represented by the current attorney. And I would limit any RFP for legal services to services that are not, or we don't want to have provided by the city's attorney. Because there is a number of things, as we discussed, that the city attorney can provide the DDA, but things that where we feel that there should be someone different, then we should have our own attorney.
And I'm struggling with that too, because I just, trying to get the, I don't know why or what kind of a situation you envision where there would be some type of a conflict.
Potential agreements or contracts, any interpretation of statutes or laws that where we don't know where we're standing.
Those are services provided by the city attorney.
Well, that's why, correct.
So,
Why don't we just,
I would support Rachel's,
Yeah.
we've got a lot of other things.
Yeah.
We can talk about this in the new year. We've talked about this the last two meetings. I don't think it's worth our time today to talk about it. If we can just say with a goal, let's plan to start next fiscal year with new contracts with our vendors of record, and we can have that conversation later.
I'm fine with that. Now, what about graphic design? I wasn't sure where we are with that.
We don't,
We don't have.
we have essentially a
Well-
vendor that we use, but we have not in recent time gone through a selection
Okay.
process on that.
Okay.
everyone good with that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. New business, consideration of hiring a part-time office support. I asked to put this on the agenda because we know from past executive directors that they have needed part-time office support. And Caitlin, and she can share with you her thoughts on this also, but has been asked to do more and more things over the last month or so. And we think that it would be beneficial that if she had some office support, that she could stay focused on the major projects. And office support as far as bringing, checks for board members to sign, working with Connie on accounting, printing checks for events.
Oh,
Do you have a list of items?
so I reached out to Rachel to ask, during my board meetings and committee meetings, I've noticed where out of the 6 goals that I was originally given, how the priorities adjust and change. And trying to be as fluid as I can be, I still want to make sure I stay on the top priorities. And at recent board meetings and committee meetings, I haven't been able to do that. But I've been trying to track why that's been the case. And I went through each one of my hours just to have a better understanding of what admin tasks include. And I'm going through my invoicing, phone calls, mail, check signing, bank runs, board agendas, packets, and signing sheets, office projects, which I'm pretty involved in and will probably continue to be involved in, our TIF, revolving loan, bylaw changes, board communications, and paperwork. But then there's additional projects like website and the PA 57 reporting. And every week it kind of differs, but to be specific, on average, admin work is about 46% of the hours that I'm spending in the office. I reached back out to Tom and just asked if he had a more streamlined process. I'm kind of trying to follow what he did, but we're spending about the same amount of hours doing office or admin type of work. In order to do some of the priority type projects, I would have an appreciation for someone who would be able to assist in some of these other things that are taking up a larger percentage of my time than I originally expected in that position.
Kevin, are you finding that, excuse me, are you finding that your priorities have been changing and require more time for meetings and so on? Is that where the issue is?
I'm developing a better understanding of where the priorities are. So when I first started, I spent more time on PA 57 reporting for the state because my understanding was I wanted to just and verify that we had all our paper correct with the state. I don't need to spend that much time on it. I need to be spending more time on our Spark event, our business retention visits, these contracts and options.
My only comment, should we take a look at what goals were set for her, maybe those need to be adjusted.
And I think that we can do that, but I think no matter what, this position is going to need at least 15 to 20 hours. We know
15
that,
to 20, you
we
said?
know that from the past, with our past directors.
I don't disagree. I think that Caitlin is what, about 4 months in, and I think we have a 6-month review. I'd like to revisit this at that point. I think as we get through some of these projects, we may have some more clarity. And I don't disagree that it may be an option, but I'd like to look at that after 6 months.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I agree.
I just want to add that I think it's important that we're having this conversation, even if we're saying we're going to delay, things for 2 months, because I think we need to show support for our director. That I think she's struggling a little bit, trying to juggle a lot of balls in the air. We're very supportive and thankful for everything you're doing, and we'll get to getting you the help you need.
So we can put that on the December agenda. Consideration of budget amendment for design committee parking signage.
I asked this to be on there. Last month, we came to the board through design and basically said that we had authorized, we being the DDA board, last spring had authorized up to $80,000 for parking corrals. Those did not, garbage, yes, garbage. That did not get transferred into this fiscal year's budget. This is another item that's kind of the same type of item. Back in April, the board authorized $4,500 for parking signage in the downtown district's parking lots and some directional parking signage. Anticipating that those would get done quickly by the end of the fiscal year, that didn't happen. Although DPW does now have all the signs and will be putting them up shortly, but we don't have that in our budget this year. So I would request that we amend our budget to include that item that was approved last year and incorporate it into this fiscal year's budget.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Excuse me, I missed for how much?
$4,500. That was the amount from those.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consideration of West Shore Community College redevelopment project at 400 River Street.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark Miller, for the record, the Economic Development Director for the Chamber of Commerce. We are here to ask the DDA Board members to consider a leadership role in a transformative project for downtown. Just like the DDA played a transformative role in projects like Globe Theater, for Bluefish Restaurant, and the North Channel Brewing project, you have an opportunity before you to provide an important role that will leave a lasting legacy for not only downtown, but for the entire Manistee area. In addition to Stacey Vitor and I from the Chamber, I'd like to point out that we also have Scott Ward from West Shore Community College President, Crystal Young, who is the project manager. They're here to answer questions if necessary. West Shore Community College has taken a leadership role to acquire the former Blight building and has presented an extraordinary vision to provide educational and economic development programming for the Manistee area for the betterment of the local and regional economy and people's lives. The project will transform a major anchor property of downtown from a blighted space to a vibrant, community-oriented asset. And it will create and maintain a professional staffing presence that can improve foot traffic downtown for Manistee businesses and provide commerce year-round. This is important because it will provide opportunities for people to visit, to stay downtown, and can help small businesses in the area. In addition to that, there will be presence for staffing that will house 3 different entities: Michigan Works, the Chamber itself, as well as West Shore Community College staffing. Their intention is to have people that can help small businesses. Together with the Chamber and Michigan Works, will be able to provide the area with some important assistance and value-added programming. The college is asking for a minimum of $750,000 to help fill a gap for an improved facade that will be consistent with the historic character of downtown. We had a meeting, I requested a meeting of leadership from DDA to come and sit down with the Gateway Project from Little River Holdings and with West Shore Community College to provide the vision and have a discussion about what could take place. In that meeting, Barry was one of the representatives for the DDA. Barry actually suggested something very interesting, that an additional $250,000 could be used to help beautify and make the Riverwalk more development consistent with your vision for downtown. The college is open to that possibility, so that would make the ask today up to $1 million. The alternative for the college is to proceed with capital funds they've allocated. The problem is that their funding gap will not allow them to address the facade. So if they move forward as is with what the capital that they have, the project will get a restucco, a refinish, it'll be refreshed, but it'll still maintain the character and design that it currently has. So there's an opportunity there, and there's potential for the improvements that would come to you and ask for your support to blend that building into the historic downtown features and create a sense of community pride for the project. Today, if the college can receive some sort of official approval, some sort of or an MOU on a funding source or some sort of action from the DDA, the college will move forward with a bid, preferably this fall, but they do need to understand what the intentions might be and to take your temperature for the project. So the request is to ask the DDA board to approve this project funding in the TIP plan moving forward. The Chamber supports this approach and asks for your consideration.
What was the amount again for, or what was it?
To fill in the gap for funding, the original request is $750,000. That will help with the facade, and then Barry had the additional suggestion.
Is there any MEDC funding available for this?
There is, but there is some issues with the budget, and so it's not clear whether that is available for this project. I think that the timeline for that resolution could be many months. And is there anything you want to add to that, Scott?
The MEDC did show interest in partnering with us. However, we're 4 months in, 5 months into working with them and have zero progress. And that was an initiative they came forward with. And that is part of the reason the project actually changed, is when we were looking at what the MEDC could add to improve the facade. We were going into this project fully funded as a project in our concept of taking just some improvement there. So it's really what's happening inside, the collaboration, partnership, and improvement. But when we saw what the additional funding MEDC could come in with, I think it's transformative. I think the project the college started with was a great project, but as I looked at this, I would say it was a good project, and this could move it to great to transform downtown. From what we've seen in the state budget and the little to no action from MEDC, to date, I have no confidence that would come to fruition, and I don't think the college can delay long enough to put this project off so long as on the hope that someday we'll get funding.
So are we looking at the original facade or
That is the
This
upgrade.
is the revised.
this is the upgrade to the 750?
Yeah.
Do you have,
I do have a couple of the original facade. The only difference is on this rendering, you can see the backside. That actually would all be eliminated. There's a deck and some windows there. That would not be there as well. And I only have a few of these, so I'm going to pass around the chair. They're great.
so,
And just one more complication, the MEDC money would not come without some additional considerations, such as the college is not eligible for MEDC funding, so we have to have another entity own the building.
Excuse me.
So there's a lot of other legal complications tied to the MEDC that, although we would not want to turn down their money, it makes it hard money to.
Will you be fundraising or will your foundation be supporting the project at all?
The project concept that we have raised, we do have $1 million
For the facade?
for the project overall, which did include some facade improvement. So if you look at the original concept, there was facade improvement, restuccoing, some design elements to it. So we do have, the project was a little over $2.2 million from the college and 2.2 from the college and 1 million from a donor, from donations. The $3.2 million was the project with MEDC funding of, say, about 750 going into the project. We were looking at the college adding another, I plan to go back to the board and get another $500,000 to 750 from the college too. So it's not just all in one party, it's to take this up, but to another notch.
So the entire project cost is
Right now, the top end one is 4.7 million.
4.7. And how much of that is the facade then? 750 you said?
Yes, I would say to get to the top end facade, and there's some other structural improvements. There's, if you look down the, it's facade on the whole streetscape. There's, as you continue past the property to the west, there's stairways down and a barrier to improve the whole property. If that makes sense. So it's not just building facade, it's also improve the parking.
Okay, so that would be, you envision having a street level parking then added?
No, there is parking,
Under.
but as you pass the building, there's streetscape along on this property. Gates or fencing that should be replaced, I would think, to beautify downtown. Just the entrance to the whole parking area.
And then the entrance to the parking, the underground
Underground.
parking will be through the, street.
So there will be entrance underneath at the.
But it
The
will be
parking
from,
level?
what's the street there?
Oak.
Oak Street then? There will be
The
new,
parking's gonna remain.
yeah, it's not gonna change.
I know, but the entrance will be from Oak Street or where it is now? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
the entrances don't
Okay.
change.
okay, that's what I was.
There would be new storefront entrance at the underground parking level or covered parking level, regardless of any additional funding. So we will improve that and have.
What's the timetable for that you want to start and what's the construction duration Or what's the completion, assuming that you proceed with your current desired
Our-
schedule?
Our original plan, when this was approved in May by the board to make the purchase, was to have construction start September 1st and occupancy January 1st. Because of the MEDC interest and what we saw the project could move up to, we were interested in waiting, and I think MEDC, Stacy and Crystal were in the original meeting we had with MEDC, and there was a project they were interested in pursuing, and they expressed that they could fast track this, fast track being 90 days. Well, we're 5 months into it, and we haven't made it. So I think we haven't made it to the fast track yet, and I'm not sure if the fast track is coming. So right now, we have committed partners, as Mark indicated, with both the Michigan Works Networks Northwest and the Chamber of Commerce, who we had originally promised, or tentatively had stated, slated for a January 1st occupancy. We've told them both we're probably looking at April at best, maybe a June occupancy is what we're shooting for now. So we need to start moving on this project as soon as possible to fulfill our commitments to our partners. Since the delay has added another ability, is that we have another interested party who I think is committed to come in with us to even improve more traffic downtown and the economic development activities in that building. So I'm hoping to move forward as fast as possible. I would doubt if your board is ready to make a commitment today. Based on,
Is the MEDC stalling because of the budget right now? With the state budget, or what is their reasoning for not?
I think honestly, part of it is just their process in general. It's very convoluted. On top of the fact we would add several more steps, even though they're saying they're making it easy, it's not. And to add on top of that, yes, their drastic cut in funding, it does not bode well.
Crystal, did MEDC tell you which program they were looking at funding?
Yeah, the community block grants.
CRP? Oh,
Community development block grant.
State, that one, yeah. Yep.
3 months,
It's,
maybe.
you know, my experience with MEDC, nothing's fast. I think,
Especially with that.
I think if they had any resolution, it'd be a year or more.
You know, bless them for trying, like Scott mentioned, this project, because of the college and the partners involved and what it stands for, has gotten attention in all parts of the state, from Traverse City to Grand Rapids to Lansing. So when they approached us, they committed to, we're gonna make this work. And part of the reason for trying to move quickly is to start the facade upgrades this fall. And since we're almost halfway through October right now, that construction season, windows going narrower and narrower.
So this is the opportunity for the DDA to assist in filling that gap and to provide some assurances to the college that there could be funding to help make the project whole. I think that it's fair to say that you're willing to take on some responsibility for moving the project forward if the DDA can discuss and to step towards the college with some assistance.
Just one other comment. I think it was 2 weeks ago, out of the blue, I got a call from a resident of the community that is interested in starting a new business downtown, just because the town is going to move forward with this project. So I would, you know, that's just an example of what could happen because of this.
Question, from a process standpoint, there's essentially 2 different facades kind of in play here, depending on funding availability. Have either of these gone to Historic District Commission and been approved so that you have assurances that either of these is acceptable at that level.
I don't know the answer to that, so let me turn.
So our architect, Ken Thompson, has been working with at least a group from the.
But it hasn't been to the commission yet, so the commissioners haven't, it's not been,
I know she met with, was it their executive committee, maybe? Multiple, do they
I
have?
think she met with Mark Fetter, who's,
And there was one or two other gentlemen that she met with.
I reached out to Mark just to kind of understand where that process was. Because the struggle I have here is a project that is set to go and will bring all of these benefits, the college, these, collaborative work environment space for these other entities, and it's ready to go. Or version 2, which is all of that plus a nicer facade, or what's, it caused me to swallow a little bit hard to do that. I'm not, a historic district type expert. If the experts who looked at this stuff and deal with this stuff said, oh yes, this one is clearly, so much better for the overall impact of the downtown, and we wouldn't even consider the first, or, both would be acceptable, that gives me different directions to, is that worth that cost? Because, putting in perspective, we talked about the tip earlier, our planned total capture over the next 20 years is about $5 million. This is roughly 20% of that for one project that doesn't directly help our tax base, because it's not a taxable project. It will indirectly help our tax base, I believe, in many ways, so I'm not saying it doesn't have a positive impact. Unlike when we were talking about earlier with the Gateway project, one of the things we talked about was ensuring that would remain a taxable thing, because then it directly, we see a direct return through the tip capture on that.
Couple of comments. Number one, certainly the HDC is going to have to weigh in on the final answer. I think, to me, the question in front of the DDA board is, are we comfortable with just a refresh of the current facade, or do we want to see something much nicer? To me, and I would vote for the much nicer facade. I think it's worth it. Secondly, although the president and I disagree, we'll have to arm wrestle about it. There could be some tax capture involved, because it's not, whether it's taxable or not, is not driven by
It's
who
also
owns.
by use.
It's by use. So we'll have those discussions. And so there could be some financial benefits in terms of tax capture.
Couple of things. Of course, I cannot speak for the HDC, but this plan, the nicer plan, is, I think, compatible with the historic character of the downtown. I mean, there is elements that have been incorporated here. You're not going to make another building that looks historic. It cannot be. So I think we need to proceed in our decision-making with the assumption that this will be approved by HDC.
But would the other one be approved as well?
This one,
Given it's a non,
I think with the two additions, the two entrances, and everything else staying the same, the HDC cannot really deal with that, with what's remaining.
changing.
But the two changes, I believe they should be acceptable. But aside from that, for us, the issue is, and you addressed one of them, and that's tax revenue, and it's correct, depending on what portion of the building is used for commercial purposes, that should generate property taxes. I do have a couple other questions. What's the number of people that you expect to be, or jobs created over there? Rough numbers, between the college and the other entities. Are we talking about 10 jobs, 50?
I'm not sure if there's jobs created, it's locating jobs in downtown. If
From where though? They're jobs relocated from elsewhere.
The community college has classrooms, I believe, still at the hospital, so those classrooms would just be moved to downtown.
Well, no, we're maintaining our presence at the hospital also.
Oh, okay.
But we do not have full-time, do not have staffing out there. I'm going to estimate between the partners, there's probably going to be close to 15 people in that building. And although I think the chamber is, if the chamber is considered downtown on the other side of the...
They're part of our district, so, yeah.
Okay, so that wouldn't be 15 new, that includes the chamber people moving over. The other absent the chamber, those would all be people relocating from elsewhere into downtown.
It's also fair to say too that people will be trafficked in to meet with these three entities for economic development and a programming area. You could see an increase in foot traffic just because we're all co-located in the same building.
I agree. I think having this operation at that particular location would be very beneficial. The financials are a little different. Have you pursued a facade grant, not CDBG, but just facade grant through the state?
We have
We were advised that it would be worth our time.
By whom?
MEDC as well as, not SBDC. The small, Mr. Allen, Jason Allen.
USDA rule.
USDA rule?
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the DDA supporting and collaborating with the college in pursuing some facade funds. You're not going to get all of it. You know, if I were to guess, I would estimate that the most facade grant you can get is going to be about 450. Still, there is a gap, but that gap, and I'm looking at our TIF plan, and again, remember, we do not have an approved TIF plan, so we cannot commit to anything that has not been approved. But for the facade program for the downtown buildings, over the next 20 years, we have allocated about 600,000. 150 the first 5 years, 150 the years 6 to 10, and then another 300. And that, then, the intent of that was to make smaller grants, loans to improve facade in other downtown buildings. This is pretty major. And I cannot see spending or using up all of our facade program funds on one project. And by the way, we're not going to have those funds for many years. So,
Well, I think that was not something you mentioned, but it came out in, the request would be for us to bond out this funding to basically get the funds to them in a much faster turnaround time.
Thank you, Barry. Yeah, that's correct.
okay, I didn't hear. I didn't hear.
Yeah, so,
And
Can we
certainly,
do that if we don't have an approved TIP plan?
well, I think it would have to be contingent on that we would, my idea was to throw this back to the TIF committee, realign projects to include minimally the 750 unless Barry wants to bring up the other 250.
I will at some point.
Yeah, okay. So, and then the college has to understand that if we incorporate it in our TIF, that it still needs to be approved by the city council. So, and I would hope that would be enough assurance for you, because I think they understand we don't have the final say. And then, just if the board wants to do that, just remember that we got to accommodate some funds for a bond council to do that.
And when I'm looking at our TIF plan, we have cut out the last month or so when we reduced the fundable projects from about 15 million down to 7 or so. We took out all major projects, and most of the funds we have are for essentially maintenance and smaller projects and small improvements. Like I said, under the facade program, we have 600,000 over the next 20 years, but I cannot personally, that's a decision for the group, personally, I cannot see committing all of the available funds to one project. Again, understanding that that is a very important project in a very important location.
What was the cost of the first facade?
The limited facade?
Yeah, the limited facade.
I would say,
Our original, I don't know about the facade itself, our original project was 3.2. The 1.7 or 1.5 million addition includes some of the lower level build out. So it's not all, the 1.5 addition is not all facade. So we're estimating about 750 for all the facade. If 450 is the number, and we talked to some at our meeting there in Caitlin, and we discussed asking for the full amount, if a number of 450 came back, I have to get all my approvals from the board also, and it's me judging what we can do with the board. Is I could see where we come at if the board is, if 450 is the number, when my board had that 300,000 showing a commitment from our partners. So, it's an open negotiation. We're asking for 750. If you came back and had a 450 number, we'll see what we can do to.
so this is the 750,
Yeah.
essentially?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the,
I want to say that maybe was 200, 300,000. I
that
don't
sounds
have,
about, that's what I eyeballed it at.
I don't have the breakdown in front of me. And so that, that's a 750,000 additional on top of that.
Or on top of that?
Yes, yes.
I mean, personally, I would be comfortable with doing anywhere from 300 to 450 with the foundation, your foundation matching, and you reaching out to your donors. I think you have fantastic donors, and I think that your donors would be very supportive of it. And having a match would be a more incentive too for them to donate to a project like this. Because if we exhaust our 600, we don't have any other funds to support anything else.
Just a couple of comments. Tina, I appreciate the fact that, you ran the numbers of how much we're looking at facade grants in the future. The USDA does have a program where the DDA could get money from them and then loan it out at really low interest rates and still turn a bit of a profit for our time, so.
The revolving.
Yes, the
Correct.
revolving.
We already have
We
that
have-
program.
Yeah.
But using USDA funds?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
where that
and
came
we
from.
talked
Bring
about
that up.
adding to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so as I'm saying, we could ramp that up to make more funds available.
But still, those are loans versus grants, and that's a
Yeah,
whole
and-
different.
I know, but I'm just throwing
incentive.
out that there's other options.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you know, I think we need to get, as a board, we need to get behind this and support it. You know, I don't know how much the DDA put into the Bluefish back when.
Under 50.
Yeah, and then, you know, the Vogue, and now we're working on
Vote
the
was
other end.
probably around 300
Right.
total.
And I know we supported the South Washington Street project, you know, $400,000, $500,000 because we elected to get out of our capture, TIF capture. So, I mean, we've done projects of magnitude before, so I would be comfortable with minimum $500,000, and if needed, go up to $750,000.
But a big difference in all of those projects
Correct.
is they wouldn't have happened if we did not contribute. This project is going ahead with or without us. Is it worth $500,000, $300,000, $750,000
Well, I
to make
think-
it look better?
To me,
But Barry, I think it is. The difference is that you know, Thad's talking about the South Washington project, but that will generate, you know, another $2.5 million in TIF.
For a lot of city
That goes to
infrastructure.
the city infrastructure. Now, this project would qualify under the same program if it would generate some TIF. And I think you mentioned earlier that
Possibly.
there can be some, in which case we can look at, I mean, the DDA could loan some of the necessary funds through the facade program and then get repaid, do a loan and then get repaid through some of the TIF that will be generated for part of it, but not all of it.
But my understanding, because generally when you talk about TIF, you think bigger TIF. You're thinking like a
Yes.
brownfield
I'm
TIF,
thinking
where
that
we would capture
the
tax,
state
or the
tax,
state's
exactly.
educational taxes as well.
Essentially, we
So we'll
double
capture
the amount
more
of capture money, yes.
as opposed to any additional, or current TIF would theoretically still come to us. But because of that program, you're capturing additional tax dollars as well that can then be invested back into.
To me, I think it's pretty simplistic for the board. I mean, either we settle for this, or we want to support something like this that is more in context with the rest of
Well,
our
I think
downtown.
I think we are, what I'm hearing is that we are supportive of this, but is there something that the college can do to match what we do? Because I don't think that we should just exhaust our $600,000.
Well,
That's-
So,
But I agree with you, but if the college cannot, for whatever reasons, close that gap, I think then, and we still want to proceed with this because it's going to be a benefit to the district and to the city, I think we need to look closer at what funding we can bring from other outside sources. The problem is going to be
Time.
Anytime we're going to pursue any other state funding, on a good year, you're going to be looking at 6 months, easily.
And if there's the funding.
They have the funding. When there is will, there is ways, you know.
Well, I don't know what's their budget is. We question that.
Well, as recently as last week, I knew they had funds at the CRP program. They have funds at the CDBG. They have tons of money at the CDBG program.
Yeah.
So,
I just
but it's the
kinda-
time.
I want to throw out a third process, you know, in here. It's like I'm looking at these two drawings, and of course you have the fake facade up at the top, they have a cornice in the Primo one that you could put on this, and you could still have the overhangs and a can of paint, because it looks like it's painted, it's not all brick, that stucco is painted. So we do the same paint color over here. I think you have a third option for not, I mean, there are some enhancements you could still do. This is the basic, you know, and if we can't afford them to give them everything, I think we could do enough so that you could have it a little bit more than just this. You know, I don't know why, I mean, I'm no expert, but it's like, okay, that color, yes, that would work because it'll go with it with the brick. The cornice at the top, which you can see in this building, apply it here, it'll match right in with that cornice. And you're not gonna have, what is that, 6 feet or 8 feet of,
Well, but it's the brick and,
the brick is,
I don't think that we want to get into
No.
doing that.
for.
But
afford
I know,
this.
so then let's just,
Well,
let's
afford
throw out
this.
an amount that we can afford. And
Can I also,
yeah.
Mark, since Mark brought it up and Thad did as well, going back to the meeting that we had, which was really about collaboration with the DDA, with the college, with Little River Holdings on, you know, how can the DDA partner to accomplish their goals as well as our goals. And in that mindset, I spent a little bit of time talking in that meeting about, you know, one of our assets and goals being to improve our Riverwalk. This building takes up a very central place on that Riverwalk, and right now is completely underutilized, and it's actually one of the worst looking sections of the Riverwalk. And there's huge potential, I think, on that Riverwalk level. And we do, in our TIF proposal, have a lot of funding dedicated to improving the Riverwalk.
800,000.
So I was throwing out there, maybe that's a way we could partner to not only, you know, potentially help improve the use case of the structure as envisioned, but actually expand that in a way that also suits our other goals and missions. And that's, you know, where I threw out, you know, maybe at $250,000 could create a destination on the Riverwalk that then cascades to other things on the Riverwalk. So, you know, I think there are other ways that we can collaborate and partner that, you know, help all of us collectively. And it, you know, potentially does fit into what our TIF proposal has.
So that would be a, you know, if we were to max the 450, we're up to 700,000, that we could do using those two fund sources.
but then they would have to,
But then it's changing or,
Do something.
you know, augmenting the scope of the project and how it shifts things around. But, you know,
I'm going to throw out a motion. I would like to direct the TIF committee to incorporate a minimum of $500,000 to the facade program and an additional $250 million, or $250,000. Sorry. A little optimistic to the Riverwalk enhancement in conjunction with this. And then bring it back as part of our overall TIF discussion. That would be my motion.
Well, I think I would support that, and because I would support that is because I think it is moving very to put this into the TIF now.
Oh, it is.
And I just don't want to, I mean, either we're going to have to support it or not. And I hope we support it. I don't want to delay the college project any longer. So we need to decide.
I hear support around the table, and everybody loves the idea. But I do think we have to.
Yeah, that's my motion. Maybe somebody needs to support it or not, and have further discussion.
Did you support it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
any discussion?
Well,
the thing that I'm uncomfortable with is the amount. I mean,
That's
the
what
two
I'm
components, if it was 300 instead of 500, I would vote for it. at that 500 level, given the TIF, I just don't see that we have that money to allocate to this. But that's my personal thought.
The reason I'm at 500,000 is what I'm hearing from the college is that, you know, they probably get the balance if we could come up with around 500,000. That's where I can go with that.
You know, I know.
And I think it's, you know, it's incumbent on us to, again, we have an opportunity to assist in altering a major corner in our downtown. So, I mean, that's mine. So that's my
I
motion.
agree
Sure.
with, I agree with Barry. If the amount was a little bit less, because that only leaves us then 100,000.
Well,
Are we
The
adding to
600.
over and above, or are we just leaving it at 600,000? Can we adjust the budget or not?
We can adjust the TIF budget because it's not.
No, it's not the budget,
changes.
it's the
I got
TIF.
it.
I mean, can we adjust the,
But
no.
where does it, I mean,
where is it going to
where does
come?
it come from? It's-
Something has to give.
Right.
The only place that we have is what Barry said earlier, and that would be for some of the work taken out of the Riverwalk improvements. Because when I'm looking at these, actually both plans, okay, the north side is the facade. The 750, is it just for the east and south, or does
No,
it
it
include
includes both the north side also.
the north side?
And as Crystal pointed out, on the lesser of the facades, where you see the lower level build out,
That's not.
that's really not included in our original plan. This is architects overzealous.
But in this program, it includes
Yes.
improvements, facade
Yes.
improvements, so part of that can be through the Riverwalk. I can support that. What I cannot support is the total amount. Certainly not without pursuing state funding, understanding the schedule issue. There are monies there, but it's going to take time.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
How much would this change if we were proposing a 30-year TIF plan versus a 20?
Drastically, almost like another
Yes,
7 million.
another 5 to 7 million.
Is that an option?
No.
Well,
The feedback we've gotten
asked-
from
we
staff
have 30,
has been
and
no.
we've been asked to leave it back.
But, you know, nothing's set in stone.
Would it be an option if this project was part of it?
It may be,
yes.
it may be, I mean, maybe 20 is not the right number, maybe 30, maybe it's 25, I don't know.
I think that's a very good point.
I think what I would like to see is we incorporate it into the TIF, and if the TIF committee thinks that it's too aggressive for 20 years, bring it to the council at 30 or 25 and let the council weigh in.
Is it possible to have a joint work meeting with the council and the TIF committee?
Everything's possible.
I would be
Well,
more
let's do
supportive
it.
of that because of, if we're taking 20% of our budget, but if we go out 30, it's less of an impact.
Actually, even 25, Tyler. Even
Okay.
25
Or 25,
would
I
give
guess.
us enough.
Well, I
To me, it
think-
makes sense for the TIF committee to meet in a timely manner, within a week, and we have a special meeting.
Well,
Because you have a motion out, and I'm.
This Monday?
I just want the college to be able to leave here with the understanding that we've taken some action on the request, and if it's nothing more than we throw it back to the TIF committee, make the numbers work, whether it's 20, 25, or 30, and we're still at the same point of there's no guarantees until the council.
That's on the 14th.
I think that the college, and I
Yes,
can't
that
speak
would
for
be
you,
available.
but here's that we're going, or we want to support you. At what amount, I'm hearing all different amounts right now.
Maybe.
And if there's a motion,
Retract that motion that you made and then say more of in support of the college project. The TIF committee will
No sword.
and implement the college project into the TIF.
I think this,
Subject to council approval. Approval. We
Yeah.
have
That's, yeah.
and I think the TIF committee could meet within a week and we could
The
call
only
a special.
concern is that I think they need to hear what levels, that's the only thing.
Okay.
Right, because you need the
Because that
numbers, your numbers are gonna, the numbers.
Well, 500 is
Well,
out there.
So I'll give you what I'm inferring,
Give us a motion.
is there's pretty broad support from several people indicated that 300 is very comfortable, and others indicating either 5 or more. So I'm walking away with 300 sounds base level, 500 sounds possible depending on 500 or more is depending on how everything works out and the length of the TIF and other elements, looking at the TIF and the length of it. So I'm hearing pretty good support.
My only concern is what do you need from this
Yes,
board so that you
yes.
can.
I have some meetings next week with my board, because I gotta work with my board. And I can get the feeling from them talking these numbers. And the other, that we had a conversation a few weeks ago, and as we indicated, we do have some disagreement on practicability of the property, but I do think I don't think you're right, I think I'm right. The other element we had discussed is in consideration of the DDA stepping forward and helping us on this project, does the college commit to some sort of municipal services agreement? Because I'm going on the premise that we do not.
Guys, if we can extend the capture period, we can support this at the full amount, $750.
I think that's certainly worthy of discussion at the council level.
And I think we need to bring it to the council.
What's your
Okay,
motion?
there's still a motion, so
My motion was to, I forgot almost. It's been so long.
500,000.
It's that we direct the TIF committee to reevaluate their TIF plan to incorporate at a minimum of $500,000 up to $750,000. And then bring it back at the next board meeting, or if we need a special meeting, but it needs to come back soon.
Your motion also had 250 for Riverwalk.
Included. Thank you for that.
And you supported that?
Well, I guess we need a roll.
any more discussion?
Well, with the numbers, without having a contingency for approval of a increased TIF period, I cannot support it, but let's take it.
Well, I
Are
don't
you
think
sure?
the motion excluded that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
We've
The TIF
asked them,
committee's gonna rework it.
But if we cannot get the council to agree to an extension, then we
Then
cannot
this isn't
support.
happening because
Then
council isn't going to
we
support
would
it.
probably, hopefully, come back and say we would support with this amount of money that we can.
well, they can't leave here with any assurances because we don't know if the council is going to support a TIF renewal, number one. I hope they do. So I don't think it's any different to say, send it back to the TIF, make the numbers work, and if they come back to us and say, we can't do it at 20, we can do it at 25, we can do it at 28, whatever the number is, then we have to consider that.
Can that be part of your discussion, Keith?
Well, it will be part of the discussion, but again, what I'm hearing here is a number that I don't know whether we can, actually, I know we cannot accommodate it without changing the.
And the motion says that. It
Yeah.
says to work on the TIF with expansions possibly, 25, 30
Yeah.
years, to the amount up to 500,000, if not 700.
Right. Minimum of 5.
It doesn't say work within 20 years.
Right. It does
No,
not.
it doesn't. That's going to be a recommendation of the TIF committee.
The TIF, it goes to the TIF, and then I will work on it.
All right.
I guess I call for it. from all. So I think we, Chair, we're going to get our roll call.
Roll call, yeah. Is there, well, first of all, is there any more discussion?
We had a lot.
Okay.
Please no.
Roll call. Rachel Brooks,
Yes.
T. Apoditis,
No.
Barry Lind,
Yes.
Kyle Moser,
Yes.
Thad Taylor,
Yes.
Jody Bolt,
Yes.
Mara DiPano,
Yes.
Karen Goodman.
Yes.
So the next steps,
We'll meet hopefully
within the week, within the week or early next week?
I can.
I have to go,
You know what, I have to go to, can we take a few minute break? If, or I can go,
I'm
or
sorry,
I
I've
have
gotta
to go
go.
and change my point.
Then I have to.
is that your, I don't mind if we do that. We okay with that?
What's that?
T needs to change his mind.
It's in 5 minutes.
You need to go.
Okay, under new business, number D, consideration of collaboration for event coordinator, house stay at the chamber.
So what shall we say? What are your thoughts?
You're up, Mark. First of all, just let me say thank you to the DDA board for consideration of that last topic. I also just want to acknowledge, although I didn't get a chance when in the room, but having the president of the college here for that time was very special. So I just want to acknowledge that for the record as well. I think that was very helpful for you all to have access to Chris. One question I do have is, as Crystal moves forward as project manager, is there an appropriate point of contact for the DDA for the college? Who would you prefer?
Caitlin.
Caitlin? Okay. So we will make sure that that contact continues to happen.
But Mark,
Yes.
if Crystal needs some support in dealing with the EDC, I would personally, not through the DDA, but personally, I can help her.
T, thank you very much for that. Our board work with you as well. Triangulate on UNC. Okay, so the next item, topic of conversation is to ask, on behalf of the chamber, if the DDA board would consider or entertain a collaborative approach to support event planning in the area. The intent is to provide a consistent and steady value add to events and events planning. My very simple and quick request is to see if you would entertain this approach and then have some further conversations in the future about how we might be able to collaborate on events planning. Our hope here is that we might be able to entertain support and or arrangement so that we can have staff to assist with the planning of events.
I'd
That
like
is a
to
yes.
see Stacy and Caitlin and Catherine from the CVB come together and come up with a plan on this. And it's just my personal opinion, and the reason why I think that is because we need the CVB because they market the events, and events are only as good as it gets marketed. And what it looks like for, are you talking about creating new events or taking over the events?
The intent is to support existing with the possibility of expansion for additional if there's enough capacity, but the main focus would be to support existing events. So if we already, the 4 that we have downtown, I believe there's 4, would have additional help from the chamber to make sure that things like liquor licenses and other things are completed and that the event planners do not have to think we are scalable and flexible in terms of what's needed.
So, Mark, you're looking at transitioning from, in terms of the events, from a volunteer-based events to staff, run by
We're just looking
staff?
at having like a high-level staff person that can support those events. Because if you have people that maybe do not want to chair those events going forward, you have someone that has all the knowledge and support going to continue those events to make them successful. And I did reach out to Caitlin and Catherine, we had a meeting, and I kind of planted the seed saying, hey, this is an opportunity, maybe looking at like a countywide event coordinator to kind of follow through on some of that stuff. Because we do have really great goals for our events, and we want to continue with some of those things. And obviously, we kind of had this discussion before about like our sponsorship dollars, streamlining some of that for, you know, you look at our larger businesses or our small businesses that want to support that, they don't know whose events who. And I think that would kind of streamline some of that as well. So we're just trying to look at some of that to try to help. And that's our intent. We don't have a specific plan. We'd love to sit down with Caitlin and Catherine and kind of see where we could go with that. Where we wanted to see if that was something we'd be interested in supporting.
I would support the idea.
So would I.
So we have two main events. Well, we have Spark, but then we have Hops and Props and we have Sleigh Bell. Completely run by volunteers, both profitable events. And now we're going to ask for taxpayer dollars to take over the events?
That's not what I'm asking.
Then I'm
Well,
not
and
clear
I
on
guess
what you're asking.
And what we heard earlier is that you guys were talking about even the budget with one of the events and then cutting checks. If those are some of the administrative things that position can support doing. And maybe it's not the funding from taxpayers, but the funding coming from those events to pay one person that can handle all that, and then it streamlines those efforts.
So I'm unclear, if we did this and support this, and who's doing the fundraising and who gets the proceeds
That's what
from
we
it?
have to sit down and
I
figure
think
out.
what they're asking is just to have a discussion about the idea.
Yeah, I think a discussion would be great. I think that if you and Caitlin and Catherine got back together and came back with a solid plan that we could talk about.
I think it's worthwhile, because what I've seen since I've been here is that even though the board doesn't want our executive director to get involved in it, it's like a black hole that gets sucked into it the last time it takes over their time and effort. So,
liquor license.
yeah, you know, save Tyler from driving down the Lansing. So I think this could
Caitlin
be
did-
insulated.
Caitlin didn't fill out liquor licenses. I'm doing it for Sleigh Bell, Carrie did it for.
I read that as an example.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
are
so-
extra tasks that can be managed by an event coordinator.
Yeah, and those can be taken off
Fully
the burden
insulated.
of volunteers.
We can fully insulate our executive director.
The thing with the liquor license, there is a very easy process. We can take the liquor license to Robin at Boyer Agency, and she will complete the entire liquor license application for anybody. She does it for other organizations. So she will, and we have to go to her anyways. So
We're
I'm
just looking
kind
to
of-
collaborate with our partners.
Yeah.
And that's
I
how we
think-
work here.
I'll make the motion that we direct the executive director to meet with the chamber and convention and visitors bureau, have discussions on an events coordinator, and then bring back a recommendation to the board.
Support.
any more discussion?
Yeah. Are you looking at doing something similar with other communities in the county?
It would depend on the capacity of the individual.
Have you approached any of the other communities yet?
Not as of yet.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
So next steps would be for Caitlin and Stacy and Catherine to meet? Okay, funding requests for Chamber's Economic Development Program.
Yep, I was here, I think it was probably 3 months ago, and just kind of presented to the DDA on kind of where we're at with our economic development
initiative. Obviously, we've all met Mark, so I just want to come back to you to see if any further discussion was had, or if you want to look at funding that position, because we did have that conversation, I think it was like 2 to 3 months ago, and just kind of see where we're at with collaborating more in that position.
The committee that did the economic development discussions, which to the left are not here, had come back to the board and made the recommendation that we do work with Chamber and or even Filer Township with their DDA or their economic development groups, you know, when on projects. Like Caitlin would kind of work with you if something's coming up, let's say there is something coming up downtown and you guys are in it, we would probably work with you and contract with you to bring us into that whole project. Does that make sense? So it's not a flat rate, you know, right up front, but it's we want to work with you.
Like, this was, the board approved that, I think, 2 months ago. I thought you were at the meeting, but I'm not sure, because I know we let Filer know our decision, and I thought for some reason that you were at that meeting. So if you didn't get an email from that committee, maybe we can send something out what just says we did, but what we did with Filer.
Karen, are you suggesting a fee for service?
Well, yeah, we could do a contracted fee for service.
The only concern I
That's
have
hard
is,
to, I personally, I contract for a flat rate, or a flat rate. And then,
I would be more comfortable on that, because the fee for service is, you know, that's gonna be very difficult to manage.
right,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I don't want the chamber to come back and say, hey, I got a call from this person that wants to start a business downtown, you owe me $1,000 or whatever it is.
But why wouldn't they recommend that person to Caitlin? That's where I'm really confused.
Well,
Caitlin isn't doing economic.
no, she's not, I think that the city council was pretty clear about that they didn't want that to be primary responsibility of Caitlin.
We're not saying it's primary responsibility, but I think it would be, it's naturally part of her
I don't even go
responsibility.
down that.
Can we-
risk the ire of council?
Can we clarify, we're talking about economic development, the big area. What specific, can you give us some examples of specific services that you propose to provide under this arrangement, such
With
as,
the DDA or in general?
no, in the DDA.
I'm coming up because I'm the chair of the Economic Development Board, also on the Chamber Board as well. And a prime example, T, would be the Gateway project. We have got a ridiculous amount of hours involved in trying to bring that to fruition. Ongoing. We've had hosted events for the investors of that group, try to bring them and convince them this is the place to invest. And that's just one example.
Is the gateway, are you talking about American Cleaners? The
That's
whole
part of
gateway?
it. Part of it.
Oh, okay.
That's one piece of the puzzle.
Plus the
Because
involvement in
American Cleaners came directly to the DDA. So,
I think
and
he's
we,
talking about the project.
I'm talking about the project. What,
That incorporates.
what Tom St. Dennis was here for this
oh,
morning.
okay,
That,
with the developers and,
yes. That just didn't happen by osmosis.
I mean, the reason I got started was the developer day that we hosted, and we did it in partnership with the city, the DDA,